Hello, I'm Nathan Leahy and welcome to Next Week in Gaming. Releasing on Tuesday the 24th of May is a game by Creative Assembly and Sega, and this is Total War Warhammer. Now, Creative Assembly have not had such a great time with some of their latest strategy titles. A lot of their games have been let down by the engine and not dealing with multi-threaded properly, particularly in the case of Rome. And some of their newer, sort of later releases after sort of Shogun were just a little bit underwhelming overall, but I've been looking at some reviews, been looking at some gameplay, I've been discussing it with some of my colleagues at work, and this new Warhammer game looks like they finally sort of got back into the swing of things. They've updated their engine so it's now multi-threaded. They've simplified a lot of the aspects of it, which, for some of the hardcore strategy fans may not necessarily like, but for the rest of us who couldn't get deep into that crazy economic stuff, it's all been simplified a hell of a lot more. There's only 3 races plus the 4th of the Chaos race if you get that DLC crazy stuff, which is going on at the moment, and that's being sort of looked at. But for the most part, the game looks absolutely solid, and I was reading a couple of reviews today, and it just looks like it sounds really, really genuinely good. And it seems like this strategy aspect that Total War has always needed Warhammer to sort of really shine, and it feels like that is the perfect setting for Warhammer to really go on, because Dawn of War never really gave you those massive battles, and this does. But it adds a little bit of sort of typical Warhammer comedy in there too. So overall, looks like a fantastic title, and it's coming out very early next week. Also releasing on Tuesday the 24th of May is a game by Platinum Games, which it's going to be good when it's by them, and this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutants in Manhattan, and this is another callback to that 80s style sort of fantasy comic book. It's basically like Transformers but with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, except they've made it even better because it now has 4-player co-op. In Transformers you could sort of switch between all those different characters seamlessly, almost near seamlessly I guess, and it just felt good. These guys make absolutely solid fighting games. They're just entertaining, the story's wacky, the characters are always really well done in the background, and they just capture what made the original TV series and comics and everything good and just put it into their game and back it up with some just not particularly complex but just some solid fighting mechanics, which is so hard to come by these days without someone trying to obfuscate it through some complexity. But the storyline looks reasonably interesting. You get to see a hell of a lot of those typical characters, particularly Kanye West as a Roadhog, and it just looks fantastic. It's coming out next week. I'm probably going to pick it up just because Platinum Games are fantastic. And yeah, hope you guys will enjoy that as much as I will. Also releasing on Tuesday the 24th of May is the full release of Overwatch, which I played the beta for. Everyone's been sort of going on about it for a little while. The hum is slowly starting to die down until the game releases. This is by Activision Blizzard, of course, and it's their new IP with new characters, new everything. And it's sort of their game of this new FPS MOBA genre that I frequently say nobody asked for. But the hype around this game has been quite sort of divided, I think. I'm not sure whether it's sort of a case of the split of people I've talked to has been quite 50-50, or whether it is sort of like that around the internet, but I'd say 50% of people really enjoyed it and 50% people said, nah, this is not quite for me. And it is absolutely slick. Like, this is one of the best betas I've ever seen. The gameplay, just everything is absolutely solid at its core. It looks like it's been developed really, really well, really slick, and it's had a hell of a lot of Q&A testing. But I've noticed that a lot of the people that are complaining are all complaining about similar things or similar characters. And the thing that I found with this game is that there was no middle ground as such. I either really disliked the way a character played or really loved it, in the case of Reinhardt, who was absolutely my favourite character of all time. And of course there's Soldier 76 for all those COD players out there. So I don't know, it's a game that seems to have divided and conquered at the same time. But it's a Blizzard game, and I just feel like this one is going to absolutely crush all of those other ones. Gearbox's Battleborn just didn't do very well when people played around with it. Paladins seems okay. Unreal's stuff, just Paragon. I don't know. It feels like Blizzard have won this one already, and they haven't even launched their game yet. Releasing in May 2016, sometime next week, because that's the last week and that's the only time this game can release, is a game by Drama Drifters, and it's called Breached. And this is sort of like a little bit of a mishmash between that sort of puzzle story orientated game, Cradle, and a bit of The Martian going on there too. And also, I feel like there are slight story hints towards the latest game, Soma, that horror title, where you seem to be inside a robot. Not that I'm trying to spoil anything, because I don't technically know what's going on with the storyline. But this isn't actually a VR title, which I sort of expected it to be at first, because you're hacking into these little drones that go around and explore things. And it's got a bit of survival, it's got a bit of exploration, very much the Martian vibe, in that you're across this enormous planet, huge landscape, massive looking maps. Everything's abandoned, everything's damaged, and you're sort of repairing things. But the game does have some form of clock, in that you're sort of searching for things to survive, but doing things takes time. And in this game, your sort of countdown clock is you've got 8 days of oxygen. You have to make all of your decisions on whether you're going to try and save yourself, or try and figure out stuff about yourself, or try and figure out what happened. And you have to sort of choose your goal early on, and maybe split what you're spending your oxygen and resources on, in order to sort of learn in the direction you want to learn. So it feels like it's an interesting decision-making game, possibly a relatively decent story. I'm quite surprised we haven't really seen this jump up on a lot of PR stuff, because it looks like it's reasonably good. It's all done in Unreal Engine 4, so everything looks quite pretty, and it could be vaguely interesting. I'm just surprised it hasn't got sort of like that hum that Cradle did when it first released, but who knows, it could be a nice little cult classic in future. Finally, onto our review title, which will be published on Thursday the 26th of May, and this will be my last review, unfortunately, for quite some time, because I'm taking some time off doing a hell of a lot of training and all sorts of other jobs I'm not getting paid for in my other work. So next week is going to be my last review, and it's community choice review. I have made a thread for voting in the NextPowerUp forums, which you'll find the link in the original article for this Next Week in Gaming episode, and I sort of made a small poll for choose an old game, choose a broken game, and specify something, and then whichever gets the most votes is what I will review, because this last one's more about fun and less critiquey stuff. Unfortunately, I jokingly put a poll option called Your Mum, implying I would review either someone's or my own mother, and unfortunately it seems to be winning the vote. And because I'm the most honourable reviewer out there possible, if my mother does in fact win the vote, then I will do a full review of her on Thursday, which looks like it may actually happen. So whatever I end up reviewing, I hope you guys enjoy it. It's been one hell of an interesting set of 2 years doing reviews every week. I've played an awful lot of games, some terrible, some wonderful, some in between. But I think I will be getting back to it later on in this year, probably in around about Q4, October time onwards, once all this training stuff is just finally done and over, and I can get back to playing tons of games. But I've enjoyed it, and hopefully you guys will enjoy my last review next week. That's it from us and NextPowerUp. Join us next week on Thursday for our weekly review of whatever the community choice is, which is probably going to be my mother. And of course, next week on Saturday for our next Week in Gaming episode. As usual, leave your comments in the section below for what you guys have been playing. Last night was another Friday Night Magic, and we lost miserably because I made a deck in about an hour. Incidentally, that did not turn out too well. But I don't think we'll be playing Two-Headed Giant for quite some time, because people have chosen different game modes for now, which is kind of cool, I guess, because it was sort of getting majorly rampant when it came to Control, which not a lot of people enjoyed too much. Also resubscribed to WoW recently, just because I'm trying to get myself reared up for Legion, which I mentioned last week, but couldn't wait it out for the next month, so I thought I'd resubscribe. Ended up switching out to an enhancement shaman actually, and enjoying the game a hell of a lot more, that's for sure. Anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. Do check out our final review for next week, because that will be the last one, and it should be mildly amusing, hopefully, because I'm going to try and make that a little bit more fun and a little bit less serious. I have yet to decide what I'm going to write in the what we did like and what we didn't like aspects when it comes to my mother, but I'm sure I can think of something. So yeah, hope to see you guys next week.